Today I'm going to show you how to make a bird out of clay. First, the supplies and tools at your table. You will be given a slab of clay on a canvas placemat. Please keep the clay on this placemat and work on the placemat. It makes it easy to move things around without touching the clay too much. You don't want to poke the clay because if you press your finger into it, it cannot be unpoked and your finger mark will remain there in your project. You also have a container of tools such as a large pointy toothpick skewer. You have regular toothpicks. You've got pens for drawing into the clay. You have toothbrushes and opened paper clips. Don't open the paper clip further. This part acts as a handle. This can be handy for cutting, but most of the time I think these are best for cutting with the pointy tip. The toothbrush is for putting slip onto your project. Slip is the mixture of clay and water that helps glue two pieces of clay together, and it is put onto your pieces using the toothbrush. And you have a small container of water. It's very small because if you use any water at all for smoothing, you are only using one finger and you only use a tiny bit. If you add too much water to the clay, it makes it muddy and hard to work with. This is a container for any extra clay that you might have left over, although I think you're going to be using most of it for your project. So first, the circle tracer. You have a circle because you're going to be cutting it into sections like you see here. So that's what I'm going to lead you through. First, the circle shape itself. Lay this on your slab. If it doesn't fit perfectly, if little bits of your circle hang off the edges of your slab, it's okay. You don't have to push it down hard. It kind of sticks to the clay gently, pretty easily. I would take a tool like this for cutting the outside shape. You can see that if I poke it into place, it's actually standing up like a soldier because the pointy tip of this tool is touching the table because I want to cut this extra clay away so that I'm left with a circle. So I'm not going to hold the tool like a pencil. I actually want to keep it upright. And I'm just going to pull towards me. You can actually hear the tool touching the clay placemat. And you know that you're cutting all the way through. You should be able to remove pieces. You will get some clay on the tip of your tool. It's always a good idea to get that off occasionally. You don't have to throw that away. You can just stick it onto the rest of your clay. It's usable. Come back up to the top, pull the tool towards me. It's always easier to pull the tool towards you instead of trying to cut up. Always pull down with your cutting. There we go. Now I remove my tracer and I have these pieces here. All right. I can use these later as I need to for extra parts. So I don't want them to get really dry. For now, I'll just put them to the side. Don't crumple them all together. You might want them to stay flat. It might be helpful for something that you want to make. So now let's look at this. We want to actually cut this circle into parts. So we're going to cut it in half. Then we're going to make a vertical cut and then two diagonals. So we have the body of the bird and then these four parts for the tail, the wing, the beak, and extra clay to make other things like the eyes. Since I'm cutting, I'm going to continue with this tool that I had. I'm going to try to approximately find the middle and cut all the way across as straight as I can. Again, that extra clay can come off and get pushed onto some of your scraps. So this is going to stay whole. This is the body of the bird. Now I want to cut in half this way with my vertical. And then here to here. And here to here. So now I have these four parts. Again, I want to keep them flat. I'm not going to ball them together and keep them like the triangles that they are. So now let's work on the tail first, let's say. I can use one of these pieces for the tail. They're all pretty much equal. So if I have one that's bigger than another, just pick the one that you want to use for the tail. It doesn't have to be this one or this one. The tail could stay like this, and I could decorate it to put it on, or I could cut it into pieces and make coils to stick together. I think an easy way to do this might be if I take this tool on this end and I kind of press like that 2 times, then I can use my fingers to sort of shape it, round it a little bit, like that. And then I could use the pen to draw the feathers like this. So this time I'm not cutting through the clay, I'm drawing. And that's why I'm using the pen, because it's not going to allow me to cut all the way through. I just want to use the tip of the pen. It's actually a pen that's dried up, so it doesn't even work. Now I can go back and put in some texture lines if I'd like to. Textures are good on these birds, especially when you're painting them later. So that tail is going to go on the tip of the bird's body like this, but before I push these pieces together, I must put some glue on both pieces, just gently, and not a lot of this slip. It's just a little bit. It's not a giant puddle. This slip touches this slip, and I gently push them together a little bit. I don't want to push super hard because then I'll get rid of all of my texture, so I need to be gentle. If the top of the bird needs a little bit of smoothing, that's what this water is for. One single finger, not a lot. You can put just a touch of water around the edges to smooth the surface just a little bit if it looks rough. If it doesn't look rough, you don't need to do that. Okay. Now for the wing, another piece for the wing. I could do it in a very similar way to what I did with the tail, but this time I'll show you a different way that you could do it, which would be if I want to cut the wing into, let's say, one cut there and one cut there. So then I've got these 3 pieces. I can actually kind of put them together. Maybe I want to take the edge and kind of round it with my fingers a little bit so it's not so pointy. So I do that one and this one and this one, just a little bit with my fingers, kind of molding the shape that I want. And then I'm going to decide to put them down here. So I need to put some glue, slip, and glue on the back and press it into place. And then the next one, I think I'll make this the back on this one. So there's that. Put that together. And then one more, a little more here. Press that. So that can be my wing. And you can see that it's hanging off of the body a little bit. That's okay. I wouldn't want it hanging off really a lot, but a little bit's fine. I can smooth it just a bit with some barely wet finger smoothing here. Then I can go back to my pen and draw some of my textures in, like I did up here. Remember, I'm not cutting, drawing. So there's the wing. Now the beak. I could leave this like a beak, and it could work just like this as a triangle if I want a closed beak, in which case I could use the pen to just draw a line across so that I have an upper beak and a lower beak. If I want the beak to be opened, then I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I would actually cut, but not cut all the way across. So I have that. So I can actually open the beak a little bit, and I can shape the end because it looked kind of a little bit too pointy. That could be a beak right there. So I put slip on, remember, just a little, and the toothbrush allows me to scratch just a tiny bit to help roughen up the surface. And there is an open beak. It's like that. If I want to smooth it, just a tiny bit of water.
Teachers and staff, please be aware that if the fire alarm goes off, just ignore it. Thank you.
There's that beak, and I can put a little hole there for the beak. And then I can start to make other decorations with my last piece. This can be used to make eyes, head feathers. You can also use these scraps to make other things. So if I quickly want to make some eyes, I would roll into a ball or a sphere. Try to get them equal. Put some glue wherever I want the eyes to go, like maybe there and there. Put glue here. Stick that together. Press down just a little bit to make sure they're sticking. And if I'd like, I can take one of these tools and push in and turn and release. Or I could use a bead like this. If you take a bead and you press it down in and gently and then twist to release, you can get an eye that looks like that. So you could do either way. It's totally up to you. Then you can draw extra details in the lines, in the eyes if you want to. You can also use your tools to draw things in here, like texture could be like this. Or you can use a popsicle stick to make feather texture. You can be creative with this. Do it how you like. And there is my bird. If I wanted to put some pieces up here, I could make coils, for example, and I could scratch and attach them to be coming off of the head. I'll just make them quickly, kind of push them together like that. And then I would use my glue, my slip there, and put that maybe back there as a decoration. I could do that as well. So you can add pieces that you decide on. Don't add legs or feet because that will be done later with a different material after the clay is fired. Have fun.